All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're exploring the secret life of the law. And at its heart is this constant battle, this tension between the need for things to be certain and the demand for things to progress. So, let me start by asking you a question. When you think about the law, what pops into your head? Is it some dusty, ancient rule book that never changes, where judges just look up the answer? Or is it something more alive? A living story that's constantly being rewritten, with judges holding the pen? That very question is what this is all about. Okay, to really get this, we have to talk about one core concept: precedent. The idea is actually pretty simple. If a higher court made a decision on a case yesterday, a lower court with a similar case today has to follow that decision. The whole point is to create certainty and predictability, so the rules don't just change overnight. But here's the twist. What happens when following that old rule, that precedent, would create a clear injustice in a new situation? What if society has moved on, but the law is stuck in the past? Well, this is where things get really interesting. This exact conflict led to two totally different views on what a judge's job even is. On one side, you've got the declarative theory, championed by a guy named Blackstone. This is the idea that judges are kind of like legal archaeologists. They don't make the law, they just dig it up and declare what it's always been. But on the other side, you've got the realist theory, pushed by people like Bentham. They say, come on, that's a fantasy. They argue that judges absolutely do make law, all the time, filling in the gaps when justice really demands it. The famous Judge Lord Denning just summed up this whole debate perfectly. He saw the legal world as split between the timorous souls, the cautious ones who were scared to create anything new, and the bold spirits who were ready and willing to step up if that's what justice required. For a really long time, especially in England's highest court, it seemed like the timorous souls were winning. The law was kind of stuck, but everything changed at one key moment, a massive turning point in 1966. I mean, just try to wrap your head around this. For more than 100 years, the House of Lords, which was basically their Supreme Court, believed it was completely trapped by its own history. Even if they knew a past decision was dead wrong and was causing real problems, they felt powerless to change it. Certainty had literally become a cage. And then came this one year, 1966, a single moment that would unlock the law and change its development for generations to come. It was huge. And here it is, the Declaration of Freedom. In what's called the 1966 Practice Statement, the top judges announced a revolution. They said that while precedent is still important, from now on, they would depart from a past decision when it appears right to do so. And their reason? Because, as they put it, being too rigid can lead to injustice. The bold spirits had finally won. So, with this newfound freedom, what did that actually look like? What happens when judges are given the green light to make history? A perfect example of this in action is the famous case of Rylands v. Fletcher. The judge, Justice Blackburn, was like a master craftsman. He took a whole bunch of separate, scattered cases where someone was held responsible even though they weren't technically careless. Then, he synthesized them. He found the common thread running through all of them. And finally, he remolded them into a brand new, powerful legal principle. He didn't just find the law, he made it. Lord Atkin just captured this whole spirit of progress so perfectly. He said that when these old, outdated rules, these ghosts of the past, are standing in the way of justice, a judge's job is to just walk right through them, completely undeterred. And this isn't just some old English story, by the way. This dynamic plays out across the world. Take Nigeria, for example. Their Supreme Court has had its bold spirit moments. In one case, they relaxed these really strict rules about who was even allowed to bring a case, opening the doors of the court to more people. In another, they laid down these huge new principles about which fundamental human rights you can and cannot sign away. That's judicial progress in the real world. But, okay, it's not all that simple. Giving judges this much power to create and change the law, well, it comes with some pretty big risks. What's the argument from the other side, from the timorous souls? Well, the case for caution is a strong one. First, if you suddenly change a legal rule, you could mess up all sorts of contracts and property deals people made based on the old rule. Second, the law can start to develop randomly, based on the accident of litigation. Basically, whoever happens to have the time and money to fight a case all the way to the top. Third, having judges make decisions based on public policy was once described as riding an unruly horse. You never know where it might bolt. And maybe most importantly, when a judge overrules an old case, that change applies backwards in time. It's like saying the law was always different, which is totally unlike a new law from the government that only applies from today forward. So all of this brings us right back to our central theme. This isn't a story of heroes and villains. It's really about the law's constant, unending balancing act. When you look at the entire history of the common law, you see this endless dance. It's a push and pull between consolidation, that's the legal technicians who keep things orderly and predictable, and progress, which is driven by the creative judges who see the need for change. The thing is, for a healthy legal system, you absolutely need both. The great American judge Oliver Wendell Holmes just nailed it. He said, "The life of the law isn't logic, it's experience." In other words, it's not some cold, clean math problem. It's a human system, and it has to respond and adapt to the messy reality of human experience. It has to evolve right along with us. And that leaves us with one final, massive question, one that is more important today than maybe ever before. In our world, with technology and society changing at warp speed, how do we find that balance? How much weight should we give to the certainty of the past versus the demand for justice in the future? There's no easy answer, and it's a question that's being written and rewritten one case at a time.